right. Well, let's talk about World War III, which has apparently just begun, according to the Ukrainians. And today, Putin said that the U.S. is forcing this fight until the very last Ukrainian is dead. Is he wrong? Like, I'll just ask you guys, is Putin wrong about that? That this is the United States forcing this fight? Is any nutcase out there who believes that the United States is not involved in this or is not complicit in this at all? They are literally forcing this. We're going to get into Antony Blinken in a second. Ukraine has run out of men and now is turning to women to fight this war. More on that part of the story in a minute as well. But first, Ukraine says World War III has already begun. And again, we've been saying it for a year now. So welcome to the party, pal. Yes, we are already in World War III. Just wait until the real fighting starts. So here is the headlines here. The head of Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council has claimed World War III is already underway, with the Moscow-Kiev conflict pulling in countries far beyond the region. Speaking at the Kiev Security Forum on Tuesday, Alexei Danilov argued that NATO needs Ukraine as a member of the global turbulence is set to continue. We're going to strengthen the alliance, he says. If someone thinks that World War III hasn't started, then it's a huge mistake. It has already begun, and it had been underway in a hybrid period for some time, but now it's about to get much, much worse, according to him.
Hybrid period, what do you think that means?
I mean, I think where we're still acting as if like a proxy, you know, where the United States and NATO can sort of still use Ukraine as a proxy to funnel weapons in, and we use up all of their men. But the sad part is, of course, now, which we're going to get to in a second, all their men are gone. So what's left then is NATO to step in with their own forces, their own people manning these devices instead of the Ukrainians. So that's coming. I think that's what maybe he's acknowledging, that this hybrid period. Let us know in the chat what you think, what a hybrid period means. I think it's like 1 foot in proxy war and 1 foot in actually being there on the ground. But let us know what you think about that. But Western support for the war is fading quickly. And we see that. We see that in the UK. We see that across Europe. We see that in the United States. And that's why America's errand boy, Antony Blinken, showed up in Ukraine today. Because despite what you voters think about the war, and you absolutely don't want us to be funding this and people dying, it doesn't matter, because the deep state absolutely wants this to continue. So Antony Blinken shows up there, doubles down on support for Zelensky today. And, you know, he's there to basically say, we will be here and support until every Ukrainian has been killed. And then American companies will come in and buy up all the land and all the minerals and turn your country into a garrison state for the United States. That's what Antony Blinken...
Well, that's you reading between the lines, I assume.
Oh, he didn't actually say that.
Okay.
He said something. He didn't say that exactly, but we know that's why he was there. But here's actually what he did say. Watch.
I'm here first and foremost to demonstrate our ongoing and determined support for Ukraine as it deals with this aggression. We've seen good progress in the counteroffensive. It's very heartening. We want to make sure that Ukraine has what it needs not only to succeed in the counteroffensive, but has what it needs for the long term to make sure that it has a strong deterrent, strong defense capacity, so that in the future, aggressions like this don't happen again. And we're also determined to continue to work with our partners as they build and rebuild a strong economy, a strong democracy, all of which is necessary to ensure that Ukraine not only survives, but it thrives in the future. And in that, Ukraine has a strong partner in the United States. And for me, it's always a special pleasure to be with, again, not only my colleague, but my friend, mutual Clayton. We've been...
Yeah. So... And he's like, don't touch me. Anyway, so he says, good progress. I want to underline that point. So
yeah,
he said,
that point kind of floored me. I had to pick my jaw off the ground because the counteroffensive to keep going well.
Yeah. Good progress in the counteroffensive, he says. So let's just be clear about this. Ukraine sacrificed tens of thousands of men to take an abandoned village from where the Russians had already evacuated civilians. They removed all the civilians, and that's good progress. So now they have an abandoned village, and thousands of Ukrainians died to get it. That's good progress.
And they have not moved the map at all.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I think it's the sum of the whole. He's not just talking about that part of it. He's talking about the part where they have gone in and bought up properties and stuff. It's the sum of the whole. It's been very successful for, U.S. companies
progress
and war
for
contractors and
yes.
BlackRock and Vanguard
progress
and so forth.
for his customers,
Yeah, exactly.
Western global elites.
That makes
yes,
sense. Yeah.
for them.
So that is good progress, yeah. Or maybe the good progress he's actually talking about this. He stopped by one of many brand new cemeteries in Ukraine. Here's a fresh cemetery. He's like, this is progress. You guys are building things. I see innovation here. You guys are building graves like more closely together, and you've like lined paths with flowers. Like your innovation and progress of building cemeteries, you guys have some of the best technology advancements we've seen in the world. Your cemetery advancement projects are progress.
That is a shocking image. To think about how much responsibility the West has for those graves.
Yeah, he just walks. How do you, you piece of shit, just go in there, lob another $1 billion at this, and then have the audacity to walk down rows of dead soldiers that you are responsible for? You are responsible for this. You are responsible for these people dying for your proxy war. How do you do this and say that the progress is great? And I'm here to see my friends.
And here's another, $1 billion so you can have more cemeteries.
Yeah.
Basically.
Oh, and they're building them. They're building them at a clip that they've never seen before in Ukraine. So, and just to put this in like a finer perspective here, the amount of money that we are spending right now on this conflict, if you're wondering like, where's the money going to Maui? Where's the money going? $700 going to families in Maui right now. Ukraine's conflict spending is $100 million per day from the United States. $100 million per day.
I mean, that's up 100% because we know that in 2014 and 2015, the International Monetary Fund was warning Ukraine, stop spending $1 million per day bombing the Donbass. It's not a good use of your money. It's not a good use of our money because we're lending it to you. So if you want to keep borrowing from the IMF, you must stop spending $1 million per day on this war. Well, again, now they're up 100%.
Beam in the chat says redacted will be Kremlin's new propagandist. No, we're just telling the truth here. We don't support war of any kind. I don't think war is ever a solution. An invasion is never a solution, right? But right now, NATO is making this happen by all accounts. This is NATO's war. This is the whole reason we're here. This is NATO's war.
Well, and to be fair, where my mind goes, we've seen so much propaganda when we saw the fake bodies on the street, as they're driving by, they're showing these bodies. And then as the car's pulling away in the mirror, you see the body get up and start to walk away. We don't even know if these graves are real. This could have been a photo op that they just set up, you know what I mean? Like just to garner support, because look at all these dead soldiers and everything. It's like we don't even know what is going on over there. Like they're giving those people proper burials.
What does that garner? Like when you see...
Well, hold this thought. Hold this thought.
It tells us.
And so it is interesting that we're starting to see more and more, like we're seeing photo ops in front of grave sites now. Yeah. On the part of the West.
And anyone who wants to call us a Kremlin propaganda, this is not the place for you if you're the kind of person who needs to reduce your thinking to good and bad. So I'm sorry, this is not the place that like you have to think that Russia's the bad guy in order to support Ukraine. You can't see the bad things that Ukraine has been doing for the last decade. You can't see that if Russia leaves that place, those civilians there will continue to be attacked at the price of $1 million per day. So I'm not pro-Russia, but I definitely don't want those civilians to continue to be attacked as they have been for the last 10 years. And if that means that saying that that's uncomfortable is pro-Russia, just go. Just get out of here. We don't want any reductive thinking here that you can't handle nuance. Bye.
Yeah. All you have to do is do a search on Google still and go pre the Russian thing, the pre-2020 or whenever that was, and you can find all kinds of articles on what Ukraine was doing. But those of all, they don't talk about it now, but previously, if you Google it, it's all still there. You can see what Ukraine has been doing for the past 14 years to the Donbass.
Yeah, you have to choose who dies here, right? Russia's holding the line so those civilians stop dying. If they leave, it's back to bombing those civilians, and worse. It will be worse. for those people. And so now Russia is throwing those men, or I'm sorry, Ukraine is throwing those men against the line like a fly zapper, and they're dying for no reason. That line can hold. It can be over right now if peace talks were attended, which the West refuses to do.
Now, if that commenter was making the point that Russia might end up using what we're talking about here in a way that maybe ends the war, great. Then great. That would be amazing, but that's not going to happen. NATO doesn't give a rat's ass about these men being killed. So that doesn't matter at all. These grave sites are fantastic for NATO because it's accomplishing exactly what NATO wants, which is every Ukrainian to be killed, basically, and to turn Ukraine into another version of the United States, a garrison state for expansion. That's all they want. Of course, that's it. That's all they want. Meanwhile, the Western media is being banned from the Ukrainian government, by the Ukrainian government, from covering the war on the front lines. Now, they don't want you to see how bad it actually is. According to Swiss journalists, the blackout on Ukrainian front lines is real. So the Ukrainian General Staff has banned journalists from accessing combat zones. So you can't go. You want to see what's going on there, you're not going to be able to see it. And according to the Swiss newspaper, the news spread like a powder on Sunday, arousing anger and indignation among many journalists present in Ukraine. The front line is now totally forbidden to them, unless, of course, they have written authorization from Zaluzhny, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. So you literally, it's like, you'd have to get it's almost like their version of Mark Milley would have to sign a letter and say, yes, you, the BBC, can go and cover it. So imagine what kind of coverage you will get from the Ukrainian side on the front lines of this war. Zero or highly propagandistic. Totally. I mean, this is exactly what CNN, by the way, admitted. I don't think they admitted, they wanted to admit it about a year and a half ago. They admitted that they are not allowed to go to the front lines. They have to get special permission. And they did this report where they said, well, CNN got special permission to accompany blah, 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 the tank brigade in Ukraine on the front lines to see what these guys are going through. And they did this whole propaganda. So, of course, it was highly choreographed, highly produced, and CNN, they were able to see what they allowed CNN to see. That's it. Highly produced. And now you won't see anything on that side. So, it's very important for the journalists that we feature here on this show who are actually there, being able to get information in the Donbass to show you what's actually happening, because you're not going to see it.
Well, I am looking forward to Zelensky's highly produced, demo reel of after his visit with Antony Blinken. So anytime a famous or powerful person comes and visits him, we've shown you these highly produced sort of episodic, emotional heartstrings pulling. So you can find those pretty easily on Zelensky. So that's the kind of media we'll get, highly produced propaganda.
So mass
Well,
graves.
I want to point out too, just really quick, that I think it's a good indication that we don't actually, like the United States doesn't actually support Ukraine, because if they were all in with Ukraine and actually supported them, wanted to help them, they would have put them in NATO, and they still haven't done that. And that should be a sign right there that they don't, they don't want to they only want to give them money.
No, that tells you everything you need to know, right? We will use you. We are going to use you and your country and your people to antagonize Russia and to try to degrade Russia and get what we want, which is an expanded, proxy, but we're not going to actually add you into NATO. That's all you need to know right there. So massive grave sites can be seen across Ukraine, where estimates now have close to 500,000 dead on the Ukrainian side. The Ukrainian government is getting desperate. They put out a call for men of fighting age to return home to fight in Ukraine. We covered this story yesterday in Poland, where they're leading the charge on this. The Poles are trying to figure out how they can maybe help round up 80,000 that are still there and send them back to be killed in Ukraine. Over 3 million men have fled Ukraine, according to numbers that I'm seeing today, and they do not plan to come back. No, we're not going back there. 3.3 million. So why would you go back to die for NATO?